The monolithic economy of the United States, what it means and its consequences. This is America, the richest and most powerful nation on the planet, by a considerable margin. The sheer scale of the wealth and influence of the United States is truly difficult to comprehend, even for macroeconomists. Sure, there are figures on GDP, trade balance, and workforce, but these are useful for telling the story of a normal national economy, and the United States is anything but normal. Its retail sector is larger than all but 9 of the world's major national economies. If you like the video and want to help us continue creating interesting content, we kindly ask you to consider the idea of subscribing to our channel and making a donation to support us. Your support is precious to us and will allow us to continue growing and improving our channel. You can do it here below, through the appropriate buttons, subscribe, and thanks. California, one of its states, has a GDP larger than that of the United Kingdom, and the United States has another 49 states where that wealth comes from. But the American economy goes beyond that. It has been the foundation of the world economy in the 20th and 21st centuries, and its influence does not come from something as outdated as an empire, but from industry. Today, American companies can be seen dominating industries and economies all over the world, and at the same time, European and Asian companies are struggling to enter the American market, the largest and most influential consumer market in the world. The American economy is too big, with too many facets to explore in a brief video blessed by YouTube's algorithm, so we will make a video series about it. But for now, in this video, I want to explore how the United States got to where it is today. What made the United States so special that it is richer than the 100 poorest nations on Earth combined, by 20 times? In many ways, it really had nothing special compared to many other countries founded more or less at the same time and under the same circumstances. America has a large territorial mass with many resources, sure, but so do Russia, Canada, Brazil, and Australia. Yet they do not measure up to the wealth of the USA. America has a large, very productive population, and sure, India and China have populations 4 times as large, but while they are big economies, they are nothing compared to the United States. America is home to the world's largest modern capitalist market, which drives and rewards industrial innovation, and once again, this is true, but there are many similar markets in many countries today. And for the most part, the consumer market is more a result of America's enormous wealth than the cause. To truly understand the incredible success, we must first understand the incredible history of the country. America as we know it really began on July 4, 1776, when it declared independence from the British Empire, a position in which many other countries had found themselves before, but America was the first, and it was a more arduous undertaking than many other cases where colonies separated from the motherland. Even being the first to gain independence from England was not in itself so special. Many countries have done so with varying degrees of success. The real advantage that set America on the road to prosperity was a brilliant decision by its leaders at the time. George Washington had won the War of Independence and was so popular among the citizens of the new United States that he could easily have become a monarch, if only he had wanted to. Instead, he decided that all that hereditary leadership business was a bit out of fashion, and set a limit of 2 terms for presidents. With the Founding Fathers, he also laid the foundations for the American democratic system of today. The relevant fact here is that this was the first successful transition to a democratically elected government. When Washington handed over the role of president to John Adams, of course, the system was not yet perfect. John Adams was his vice president at the time and the vote was open only to white, male landowners, but it was still a democracy and it worked as intended, which is huge. Many countries today still cannot properly manage democratic elections, and civil wars and riots are common when beloved and long-standing figures die, are voted out, or are politely removed from office. All of this may seem very political, and it is, but the idea of having a constant system of successive leaders and governing bodies, not impacted by the life or death of a single individual, is enormously stabilizing for an economy. In European countries of the time, if the monarch died, the leadership of the nation passed to the firstborn, regardless of how young or unprepared for the role. And that was the best case scenario. In the worst case, there were major disagreements about who was the legitimate leader of the country, with inevitable bloody power struggles. This is the first major advantage of a good democracy: it is stable. The President of the United States is technically the most dangerous job in the country. 8 presidents have died in office, 4 from natural causes and 4 from so-called work accidents, but none of these deaths have caused civil wars, protests, or power vacuums. Obviously, it was unfortunate in each case, but the role of head of state simply passed to the vice president who replaced him until the next elections. For regular visitors to the channel, you will know what I am about to say. stability is the basis of a good economy, and a good democracy is a very, very stable system. You don't have to worry about civil wars or mass protests every 40 years after the death of the last ruler, it's just the routine of everyday life. A democracy, however, adds much more to the economy than just stability, it also adds social mobility. At that time, the Industrial Revolution was starting in Europe. Steam allowed a few to do the work of many, and those who were once farmers could produce much more value by working in a factory. All well and good for the average worker, but it was essentially the same old routine. No matter how hard you worked, there was a strict social hierarchy and it was rare to rise above it. Parliament was made up of lords, counts, and dukes, presided over by a king or queen, and the factories were owned by the same people who owned the farms where the workers toiled before. This ultimately stifled innovation and productivity. For every James Watt and George Stephenson who built steam engines and railways, there were probably 100 children who never had the opportunity to invent or create because they were forced to work from a young age. At that time, the United States was not industrializing at the same speed, but for citizens, there were many more opportunities for private enterprise, in part, thanks to the system established in the creation of the country itself. This private industry and self-managed innovation were also supported by another brilliant foresight of the Founding Fathers. When you think of the American Constitution, you tend to think of the important things: freedom of religion, of speech, due process, and the right to an AR-15 rifle. But the Founding Fathers were more meticulous than that when they designed the land of freedom. They added many paragraphs to the text. One big paragraph was in the First Amendment, which covers freedom of religion and speech. Congress shall have the power to promote the progress of science and useful arts, securing for a limited time to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. Basically, you can say anything, as long as it hasn't been said or invented by someone else before. Guaranteeing this was a huge boost to creation as a career. Before, invention was strictly the domain of the rich and educated, similar to creating a work of art, hard to make money from it, but maybe you gained a little respect among friends at afternoon tea. With the American system, however, the promise of wealth was a great incentive for anyone to try to create something profitable. And while it can be argued whether money was or was not the main motivation for creating a better steam engine or the most gripping TV series, it was certainly a consideration, something that America has cultivated very well, especially when combined with the previously explored social mobility. The foundations of America, free enterprise, social mobility, stable democracy, and cultivation of technical advancement, were all excellent, but they did not take it anywhere fast. Between independence and 1900, over 100 years, it was overtaken by the more established European economies during their Industrial Revolution. But that was more or less to be expected. Meanwhile, the infant country went through dozens of conflicts, a civil war, expanded from coast to coast, and went from 13 to 44 states, with another 6 to come. But you can't blame it for that. Not that the American system was wrong, on the contrary, it was brilliant, but if you put 10-year-old Usain Bolt on a track, it's likely that even I, an overweight outfielder, could beat him in the 100 meters. Not that I could, but you get the point. Countries like France, England, Belgium had a head start, thanks to their vast colonies from which to extract resources. America didn't really participate in that, not that they were saints, but simply it wasn't the kind of industry they were involved in. All of this changed, however, in the early 1900s. Industry had been important since the Industrial Revolution, but it had become the deciding factor in the world's economies, more so than the amount of spices or tea that could be exported. By that point, America had gone through its Industrial Revolution. It was a unified and massive country, with vast arable lands, huge oil reserves, and access to the Atlantic and Pacific for trade, as well as friendly neighbors like Canada and Mexico. But even all of that alone might not have been enough. As we have seen so many times on this channel, countries can squander every natural resource and geographical advantage they have. The United States, on the other hand, combined those undeniable advantages with healthy economic foundations that were revolutionary at the time, but today are taken for granted all over the world. The United States was a British colony, and since then it has been a bit strange about colonialism in general. The USA emerged just when colonialism was starting to go out of fashion, but today it is a nation more intertwined with others than any previous colonial power. In the next video in this series on the United States, we will see how this nation has created a global empire, not through conquest and exploitation, but rather through globalization and cooperation. Do not forget to share your opinion with us and leave a comment. If you also leave a like, it would be great. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.